Wow, it's like a full room. You guys are awesome. So early in the morning. I love this conference because 10 a.m. is the start time. It's just perfect. Although I'm up way too early for this time zone. And that's the end of the presentation. Thank you very much. I'm sorry, you guys came in way too late. We still have a couple minutes before we get started. Any questions someone wants to throw out, or can I tell a dad joke? Like, what's the...
Just a comment.
A comment.
Yes, this is the best seminar I've attended all day.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Oh my God. Oh, that is just really, really... That's the second best compliment I've heard all morning. So. The old Maxwell Smart show, do you remember that? Anytime Maxwell Smart would see something big or whatever, he would go, that's the second biggest or the second. And so I'm from Sudbury, Ontario. And the big nickel, when I drive by, I always turn to my son and go, that's the second biggest nickel I've ever seen. Oh, he doesn't. He still, on my phone, when I email people back, it says, sent from my iShoe phone. And very few people understand that's a Maxwell Smart reference. Hi, everyone. My name is Mark Leslie Lefebvre. This is the 7 Ps of publishing success. I wanted to start off by explaining the origin of why this book and why this presentation. So for years, I had been traveling and talking to writers. And just before, because I always do my presentations like minutes before, I'm getting everything. Sometimes I'm in the room ready to go on stage and I'm adding pictures of what happened that morning to put on the presentation because I want it to be fresh because I figure I don't want the same thing over and over again. So out of the blue, I came up with the 3 Ps of publishing success were patience, practice, and persistence. And when I looked at it, I was like, write some more. The whole bit, like patience, practice, persistence. It rolls off the tongue beautifully. It was an amazing thing. And when I left Kobo at the end of 2017, I was going to Superstars writing seminars, which is very much like this conference. It has that same family feel, but it's in Colorado Springs, so same time zone. Similar elevation, Calgary, kind of, and that's where I met Lisa, one of our guests of honor. Yay! And so when I was at that conference, the year I left Kobo, I was going anyway. So I told Kobo, well, I'll do the presentation for you as somebody who knows Kobo writing life really well. And in the deck, when I was looking at the deck, I saw that because Christine Monroe, who is the director of Kobo Writing Life, gave the deck to me, and I saw, hey, that's my thing that I made up like in 5 minutes. And it was kind of like looking at an ex-lover, like with this sort of this nostalgia, and it's like, yeah, we had some good times together, but I've grown a little bit since then, and I've moved on to a bigger, better relationship. And I realized that there were more than 3 Ps, and I realized they were in the wrong order. And I love alliteration. A lot of my nonfiction books are, Spooky Sudbury, Haunted Hamilton, Haunted Hospitals, Macabre Montreal, Tomes of Terror, Creepy Capital. And if I can't find alliteration, I'm not going to write it. So I thought I would go and do that. So when I left Kobo, I had all of these years, 25 years of book selling experience I wanted to put into a book. So I started writing a book that I was going to publish last fall called Indie Publishing Insider Secrets. And one of the chapters was going to be the 7 Ps of publishing success. I think it was actually 6 at that time. But as I was writing it, every time I got into something, I went, well, what about this? Well, that's really its own P. So I had to move them. I also ended up having this whole chapter that was going to be about Kobo, which turned into a book as well. So the Indie Publishing Insider Secrets is still not done because there's probably going to be 2 more spin-off books before I finish it because I realized that a chapter that was 20,000 words is probably not going to be a good thing. I needed to condense it, but I didn't want to not share, so that's why I did the separate books. So the 7 Ps ended up becoming, and actually there's 8, but 7 is such a nice number, right? You've got the 7 habits of highly effective people, and it's a lucky number. And I'll explain why the 8th one is a bonus one, because it transcends the other ones and is part of each and every one of them that I'll explain at the end. And so the 7 Ps are And I changed the order too, because even though patience, practice, and persistence, they worked out really, really well, they weren't in the right order, so I wanted to approach them in the right order. So they're practice, professionalism, patience, progression, persistence, partnership, and patronage. Don't worry, I'll do them all. I'll spend some time on all of them. So practice. I have a quote that I keep near my writing desk. And I read it. There was a book by Hugh Prather, Notes to Myself, and that's where I first encountered that. And I keep it at wherever I'm writing. Although I don't have it in my room upstairs, I really should. And if the desire to write is not accompanied by actual writing, then the desire is not to write. The key thing is that you regularly write, that you regularly practice, that you continue to work on it as much as possible. You believe in your writing. There are empty seats up in the front if you guys want. And it's really, really critical because one of the most successful ways to promote your existing book is to put out a new book. And that's very consistent. And the other thing I should tell you about the 7 Ps of publishing success, and I did this with the 3 Ps, is it doesn't matter if you're traditionally published or self-published, they apply. And so even, I'm not going to be able to get into all the details that are in the book, is that there are examples for each of them. So practice is really, really critical. And that's one of the things, first write a good book. And the way you write a good book is you keep at it and you keep going, you keep learning. The second P is professionalism. And professionalism is important in a few different aspects. So the first aspect of professionalism are paperwork, contracts, and content. So when you're thinking about submitting stuff to a publisher and the way that you track those submissions, where is this story? Where is this novel? Who is it with? Who have I sent it to? What kind of response did I get back? Keeping track of that, it seems simple if you're just starting, but 20 years later, you're trying to remember an editor that you had a really good relationship with and you wanted to remember that correspondence. I mean, I still have paper folders and files of all the rejection notes and all the slips, whether they were blank, rejections or actually had a scribble from the editor, which was always a good sign. And then contracts, keeping your contracts as well for every single thing. When do the rights return back to me? When is this content something I can resell? Douglas Smith is a great short story writer who has made a really decent living off of short fiction, selling them in English and then also selling the other language rights. But then if you're self-publishing, the same thing holds true. Where am I publishing the book to? Did I use KDP to go directly to Amazon, or did I go through Smashwords or Draft to Digital, or did I go direct to Kobo, or did I use a third-party aggregator? I'm on pretty much all the platforms, so I have this weird convoluted mess of where my stuff is. So a Google Doc or an Excel document where I can easily see this book was published to this platform with this ISBN, which we're Canadian, so you can get your own free ISBN, or I use the dummy ISBN from Draft to Digital or Kobo or wherever you got that for free, or it's just using the ASIN, or this is in Amazon KDP Select, so it's exclusive. So knowing the dates, the 90-day exclusivity periods, all of those things. Contracts to write, when is the deadline? When do I have to get this to my editor? Or if you're self-published, when do I need to get this to my editor? And when do I need to get it back because I have a pre-order that's up? Also, behaving like a professional publisher if you're self-publishing, and that doesn't just mean the book's ready to go, I'm going to just launch it. The way publishers do it is they advance time. So when you think about Book Expo America in the US, in May, people from around the publishing industry gather together so booksellers can meet with publishers and decide what they're going to buy for September, October, November, December, the biggest season in the publishing industry. The books are pretty much ready to go. Advanced readers' copies are going out, and they're selling books in May to sell in stores in the fall. Very few indie authors behave in that way. For good reason. The book's out, why should I wait? Because I'm not trying to sell it to someone in New York who's going to put it in a Barnes & Noble or put it in Chapters Indigo or whatever. The book's available and I can bypass those gatekeepers. But authors who are, and just for example, Apple, through Draft to Digital, I work with Apple and Kobo to get pre-order information. So one of the things, if ask me and I can send you a link to a form. So if you're publishing, self-publishing to draft to digital, and you have stuff that's pre-order for September, October, or November, Apple's looking for some stuff to feature. But again, let's say if there's 100 authors who are self-publishing, there's maybe going to be half of them or 30% of them are actually going to have that book already ready to go, fully edited, uploaded to Apple, because Apple will even preview it and take a look at it if I point it out to them. The other thing about professionalism is in-person appearances and people skills. I have a certain look, the baldness, of course. When I travel as a writer doing my ghost story stuff, I have a life-size skeleton named Barnaby. When I don't have to get on a plane, usually Barnaby's with me, and he's always there, and it's just part of the shtick. It's a great way for people to break the ice and come up and make a joke about my friend needs to eat. And I was like, well, if you buy my book, maybe I can afford to feed him. And it's like, he also needs pants too, because he wears a t-shirt usually with one of my books on it. But I think you don't have to be professional in the business professional sense. You just have to treat people with respect and courtesy. And you can be eccentric, and you can be your own unique brand. Just consider the professionalism and consider the consistency. The other thing that I think is really important related to that is not being a dick, which is right. But grooming and when you're, especially, fortunately my mouth feels really, really dry right now, probably from last night. It's Winston's fault, apparently. But there was scope in my room. And even though I brushed my teeth twice this morning, once when I first got up, then after breakfast, my mouth was just still feeling whatever, so scope. But again, because I realized I'm going to be talking to people, I'm going to be in their face. And even though I had this amazing garlicky breakfast that tasted good, that's just part of it. I don't want to offend people in other ways. The other thing to be aware of as well, because it's a lot more prevalent in society, is bathe and shower, which is important in deodorant and stuff like that. Although there's a lot of people with sensitivity to smells. So even considering the kind of deodorant or whatever, because you can leave an impression on people in unseen, unspoken ways. And that's really, really important. The other thing is adversity and rejection. Jonas talked about rejection last night, and I couldn't agree with him more. I've actually used reviews in two ways. It hurts when you get a 1-star review, but it also helps you understand that your book is not for everyone. You can use reviews for blurbs. Somebody said something about something you wrote, and if you can get past that thin skin, and please don't respond to reviews like he said, if you can get past that, you can actually learn what was it about this story, this novel, this book that resonated with a reader that they took the time to say it. Somewhere in those reviews is how you're so awesome. And so if you can get past some of the criticism that happens in those reviews, you can find the things that stuck out with them. Sometimes the bad things that stuck out with them, if you're self-published, can help you fix it. I took a review of Snowman Shivers with 2 dark humor snowman stories that were very popular to read. They're cute. It's like, what if Frosty the Snowman actually came to life? What would really happen? Would he be happy with his life? He has no legs. He's stuck there. He's going to die really soon. Dogs pee on him. All that stuff. Like, what is that like? I called it Snowman Shivers 2 Scary Snowman Tales, and I put it up for free, and it was sort of a funnel to get people to, if they like my fiction, maybe they'll buy some of my short fiction collections. But one of the reviews said, this was really fun, dark humor. It was not scary at all. And it's not. It's not. It's not. The snowmen don't come alive and eat people or anything like that. They were just cute stories. So I realized I was marketing it as horror, and it was really eerie, Twilight Zone-y dark humor. So I immediately took that and changed it, because I can. And I changed the subtitle to 2 dark humor snowman tales. I want to be very clear, it wasn't a full book. It's like 6,000 words, that's it. But that's part of taking rejection or criticism and applying it in a positive way. And the same thing when you're getting rejection. So you guys remember the Northern Frights anthology series? Don Hutchison. It's a classic Canadian horror anthology. And I wanted so desperately to be in that anthology. And every time he was reading for submissions, this is the old days before the internet, he would reject my stories. But he would always leave a really interesting note that was 1 or 2 lines. And in the line of that rejection, I turned it around, I rewrote, tweaked the story, And I always sold the story to another editor. And so when I finally met Don in person, I could have been like, you jerk, you never bought any of my stories. But I mean, Don Hutchison's an amazing editor I adored and respected. So when I met him, he actually recognized, he knew me before the internet again, so he kind of knew the name from the submissions, and he said, oh, Mark Leslie, I remember you, I'm so sorry we never connected. And I said, Don, don't apologize. I've sold professional stories to other editors thanks to you. So thank you for your rejections. I would have preferred to be in Northern Frights, but you helped me become a better writer. And I owe you a lot, even though he never published me. So like that sort of thing. Do you think that would probably have been a pretty positive impression? That he never did another Northern Frights, so there was no point kissing up to him, other than respect. But dealing with rejection. The other P is patience. Patience is really, really critical. In the early days of publishing, I used to have to send a submission away and wait 6 months for a rejection to come in the mail, and that's where you get back to the contracts and the tracking and where is this and who is it with, what agent or what editor is this with. And the patience was something, I'm fortunate that I grew up in that part of publishing, because taking that same patience from traditional publishing and okay, my book's out and I've sold it, everything's done, a year later it might be out. And then going to that point and click, my thing is done, it's edited, it's polished, it's ready to go, I'm going to push it. Or do I wait and put it up for pre-order so I can be sitting alongside the big publishers of the world? Because if it's done properly, the reader can't tell and won't care. It's just as good if it's edited, if it's polished, if it's targeted to the right audience. But then in today's world, I used to, the mailman would come and I'd be worse than a dog. I'd be coming running up and like trying to hump his leg. I was so excited when he came, because that was and I still have that. Every day I walk, because we don't get delivery to the door anymore, so I walk to where our mailbox is in the neighborhood every single day. And Liz goes, why are you doing this? It's an ingrained habit that I would sniff out the mailman when they came, and I would run, I'd greet them at the front door, and now I do the same thing. And now every once in a while, because it's actually a check from a publisher or something like that, but still, I still have that ingrained habit. That transcends into going to your Amazon KDP dashboard, for example, and hitting refresh every 5 minutes to see if your book's selling. I kind of equate that. Are you guys familiar with the Stanford marshmallow experiment? So the experiment where they put a kid in the room and there's one marshmallow, you're going to be here for 5 minutes. You can have it now, or if you wait 5 minutes, you can have a bag of marshmallows. And I always think back to that bag of marshmallows. I love marshmallows. But I know there was problems with the study of how they did it and stuff like that, but it still kind of speaks to delayed gratification. And that's really, really part of it. Instead of focusing on running and humping the mailman's leg and checking at the mailbox, or instead of hitting the refresh on my online dashboard to see if I sold another book, I really should be planning that next book or planning the next story or doing something that's actually going to bring me forward, because the sale's going to happen whether I look at it or not. The pot is going to boil, especially if I don't look at it. So that's kind of an important element of patience. Progression is the next one. Practice, and this goes hand in hand with practice. Just writing every day is great, because the more you practice, the more you read, the better you are at it, hopefully, unless you're doing it really, really wrong. That's where you take feedback from editors and readers that you've worked with, or even reviews in some cases, and you're constantly learning, you're constantly experimenting, you're constantly going forward. So the progression in your craft is critical, and that comes along with practice, so they kind of go hand in hand. But then progression in the business. I've been in the book industry for 25 years plus. I still learn every single day from other writers, from editors, coming to conferences, listening to people, whether it's our guests of honor and the experience they have that they bring to us, or whether it's a question that somebody asks me in the hallway, a beginning writer who has never sold a single story or published a single book. I learn from them because they have things to teach me as well. Everyone has something to teach you. There's a character, Harry Bosch, that Michael Connelly created, and his mantra is, everyone matters or nobody matters. And the same thing is true to me. You can learn from virtually anyone you encounter. That's an amazing thing to realize, and you'll always be better. So I listen to half a dozen podcasts on the business of writing and publishing. Brandon Sanderson has a great one, Writing Excuses, which is 15 minutes, and the mantra is because we're not allowed, you don't have that much time and we're not that smart. So it's kind of fun. It's Dan Wells, Robinette Kowal, Brandon Sanderson, and a couple other folks that come in and out. Amazing podcasts that even if you only have a few minutes, it's worth the craft. Persistence is the other thing. Are you guys familiar with Hugh Howey, big breakaway guy, wrote Wool, which actually Random House bought the print rights to, and he kept the digital rights, and Ridley Scott optioned it, and still hasn't made the movie, because he optioned it before The Martian was optioned. But that allowed Hugh, he's just come back from years traveling on his boat, living the dream on the Wayfinder. Wool was his 10th published novel. It wasn't an overnight success. It was that iceberg principle. You're seeing the tip, you're seeing the success, you're not seeing all of the work that went into it. Bella Andre as well. Perfect example is, and this is true with traditional publishing or self-publishing. And the challenge with traditional publishing is a publisher used to think of the long-term career and know that you weren't going to hit your stride and get the big audience until at least 3 books in. It's a little bit harder today because of the way that algorithms and buying and the way that Barnes & Noble and Chapters and places will do things with books, but you don't really have that. You kind of have to get it with 1 book. So it's kind of changed in that way. And in indie publishing, in a lot of ways, it's usually not. I remember Bella Andre and Barbara Freedy, 2 of the foremost romance authors who really made it big and were making 7 figures from their self-publishing. It wasn't until the 3rd book for them that things really started to take off. And in some cases, it can be more, it can be longer. The other thing about persistence, and I'm going to go back to Bella Andre, is she was publishing with a traditional publisher. She had a good career. She had this idea for this family called the Sullivans. She pitched it to her editor, and she's like, no, nobody's ever going to want to read about them. So she took a chance. Their husband said, I'm going to take a year and give this a shot. And she made more money off a $4.99 book from a series, and I think she's got like 16 books in the series now. Because the great thing about the Sullivan family is these are long lost cousins suddenly. So they're, but again, she believed in herself and she persisted and she kept at it. And even as the first couple of books were coming out and the readership was not what she expected it to be, it wasn't until the 3rd book she kept at it. She kept persisting. She kept progressing. She kept learning. She was patient. And she kept moving forward, and the persistence paid off. If you're getting rejected, if you're getting frustrated, if you're getting blocked, do everything you can to persist. Go back to that one review that somebody said that spoke to them, that you created something that actually had meaning to someone else. It's your job, it is your duty to do more, to share more of what you have in yourself, to share and to write, to give to others. You need to persist and believe in yourself, even when the world doesn't believe in you. So that's really, really critical. Partnership. There's different kinds of partnerships in publishing. Co-authoring is one of them. I've had the privilege of co-authoring books with other people, which is amazing. I've had the privilege of co-editing. I've had the privilege of co-publishing. That's a really critical thing. In the indie world, digital bundles or digital box sets are also another way that authors can collaborate, because you can get together and say, well, I write this kind of science fiction and so do you and so do you. Why don't we get together and bundle our stories together so we can hit the New York Times bestseller list? Or more importantly, so the people who like your stuff may discover me and my people may discover you, and there's different ways. It's not just the bundles, but it may even be a newsletter swap. And I'm not saying, because you can't just say, hey, take these emails, because that's anti-spam. People have to sign up to hear from you. But you can, if you know of a book, and especially if your next release isn't out or you have no news to share, you can always share a book that you read, that you like, that you think your audience will appreciate. And that's the partnership of helping other authors and working together, actually helping your readers too. I was at an event with Marie Force in Toronto. It was a Kobo Harlequin event for her to celebrate the signing a new deal and the release of her new book. So Kobo invited 150 of her best fans who we knew, because Kobo knew that the zip code or the postal code where they lived, and invited them in for an evening of drinks and hang out with Marie Force. And her book came out at midnight that day. And that evening, pretty much everyone in the room had read the book before 6 a.m. Some of them had just read it on their lunch break or just before they came to the dinner. And even though they're huge Marie Force fans, Marie Force is there, and she's recommending all these other great romance authors that she knows, all these other great books, because she knows that these readers are going to read a book a day. And it's okay for her to recommend other authors. So that partnership is really, really important. And again, it's the collaborative back scratching. Now, the other partnership that's really, really critical is thinking about your publisher and the partnership you have with them. Your editor. It's a partnership. You guys are in this together. You both want the same thing. You both want this to be the best story, the best article, the best book it can be. You're in it together. There's a pride that they feel in helping you see those words. If you have a publisher, it's the same thing. You're in this together. You're each contributing as part of a team. And that's a really, really critical thing. If you're an indie author, there's still partnerships you have with other authors. There's partnerships you have with your editor or your designer or whatever. Think of that. That's really, really critical. The Jewels of Historical Romance are an example of authors, independent authors who write historical romance. And they get together and they do that cross promotion. So they have this box set called Fabulous Firsts. And it's basically because they all have different series, and there's 12 of them. And the first book is, I think this is a 99-cent box set, but you get 12 novels for $1. And it's just a way for their cross-populated audience to work together. The other cool thing that the Jewels did that I think is amazing is they created this beautiful little box, like a treasure chest out of glass, and it was engraved. And it was called Kisses from the Jewels. And they sent it to me at Kobo. They sent one to Draft Digital. They sent one to Amazon. They sent one to Apple. Everyone got one. And every quarter, they would mail these Hershey's Kisses with a little sticker on the bottom of them that said "From the Jewels," Kisses from the Jewels. And they would send a catalog of all their forthcoming releases in the list, just like publishers did. That's exactly. I've been in the book industry long. Publishers would always send the catalogs and sometimes a treat, so you pay special attention. What I would do when I was at Kobo Writing Life is they'd come in and I would just send a note to all the book people and the merchandisers who didn't work in self-publishing and say, "Come on over. We've got some Kisses from the Jewels, some chocolate," because they knew the Hershey's Kisses were coming, all the different crunchy ones and the different flavors. It was really awesome. But then I also had the catalogs there that they would take and look through. And every once in a while they would ship an ARC, an advanced reader's copy, a print version of it, so that people can have a look at that. And I love the fact that they combined their marketing money, right? So if everyone kicks in $100, right, instead of one ad that I'm running on AMS ads or one Facebook ad or whatever, we each kick in $100, and there's 12 of us. That's $1,200. Look what we can do with it. That kind of collaboration can be really important because, again, it's all on the theme. Collaborating with your fans, partnering with your fans. You're in this together. They're in it to get something really cool that you're gonna entertain them, or they're gonna learn from you. Right? Two key reasons why they're gonna read. And that leads to the next P, patronage. And I'm not just talking about Kickstarter, and I'm not just talking about Patreon, and I'm not talking about PubSlush or any of the ways that are crowdfunded, although I am, because that's part of it. I'm talking about them wanting to read your stuff. You need them, and they need you. And so that patronage is kind of important. They provide the encouragement for you to keep going when it's hard, when you're not getting sales, when you're getting 1-star reviews, when those things. And that's a really critical element for a writer, is to have that ongoing feedback. But they also provide promotion, because often it's word of mouth, where they love your stuff so much that they're going to share it with other people, that when you send your newsletter out, that they're excited to read it, that when their book comes out, they're not only eager to read it, they're eager to talk about that and to share it. You've heard of the street team and the marketing street team? Maybe your mailing list only has 10 people on it. Who are those 10 people? Chances are the reason they're on the list, unless they're just freegans who signed up to get a free book, chances are they really like your stuff and want to be connected with you. Those are the people you should give stuff to. Those are the people you should constantly share with, and feel free to give the book to them if you can, digitally, because it doesn't cost anything. Because chances are, if they love you that much, they're going to share it with other people. They're gonna move forward. I'm going to use a personal example. Richard Lehman was a horror author from the U.S. And I read One Rainy Night, and it just bloody, scary, nasty stuff. But I loved his stuff because I could not put his books down. He had no sense of character preservation, way before George R. Martin figured that out. But Richard Lehman was like, main character walking along, boom, he's dead. Like, it was so unlike Dean Koontz. But One Rainy Night, I basically read in 3 hours, and I never do that. I'm a really slow reader. So when I was a bookseller, I would constantly bring the book into stock. And if somebody could stomach a graphic, right, if they've read Clive Barker or they've read really nasty stuff, or I figured they could handle it, I would say, I got a book for you. Here's One Rainy Night by Richard Lehman. It was $6.99, paperback. If you can put this down, or this wasn't one of the most tense, fast-paced novels you've ever read as a horror lover, come on back. Here's my phone number. If I'm not in the store, I'll personally buy that book from you myself. I wasn't the manager of the store at the time. I believed in it so much, I said, I will buy it from you. And of the 50, 60 times I did that, I never once had someone come back. Maybe they hated it, but I wanted them to know I love this book so much, because here's the other thing. I kept buying the book because I would also give it to friends. Ironically, I was a huge Richard Lehman fan, and before he died, he actually mentions me in his book, A Writer's Life, which I thought was so cool. He got the title wrong, but he's like, this Canadian bookseller and it was the other book, was like, no, that book's not as good as One Rainy Night. But again, I thought it was so amazing that he actually found out about this and talked about it. And again, this is early days of the internet, when it was just like the Freenet stuff, so text-based stuff before the Twitter. You've heard of 1,000 True Fans by Kevin Kelly? So the idea is that if you have 1,000 people willing to pay for your work, you can make a full-time living off of that. It's interesting, but I broke it down in the book, and the math is interesting because, so if I have a book that's traditionally published from Dundurn that you buy for $25, well, I get $2 a year later, with 30% withheld against potential returns, so eventually I might get some money. So I need a lot more than 1,000 True Fans to buy my book, right? Because that would be $2 times 1,000, which would be 2,000, right? Minus 30%, gets a year later. And it's this weird thing. So thinking about that, or thinking about if I'm self-publishing a book for $5, that's about $3.50 in my pocket. 90 days later, when I get paid from Kobo, Amazon, Draft to Digital, etc. Again, not necessarily a full-time income. So maybe it's 5,000 True Fans, or maybe it's more products, buying multiple products. So the math is kind of an interesting one. The other thing I'm going to share about Patronage is. You guys familiar with the actress and musician Alicia Witt? Okay, so she's been in The Walking Dead. She's in the new season of Orange is the New Black. She's been on countless TV shows. She was in Sybil, Dune. She was the 5-year-old redhead in Dune. That was her first acting gig. She's a great actress, but she is a more brilliant musician. I've been a fan of hers ever since I heard her do a cover of Paul Simon's You Can Call Me Al. Because that's her nickname. Her good friends call her Al for Alicia. I found out about this Kickstarter she was doing for an album because she wanted $75,000 to hire this really amazing producer whose name I can never remember because I don't know music producers. So it'd be like, working with Lisa Magnum, like that kind of thing. So, hey, an editor I want to work with. It was that kind of thing. And then people are going, yeah, but she's a TV star. Well, most people who aren't the big ones, they weren't the cast of Friends or something where they got $1 million an episode. They're like you and I. They work, they make a living. We think they're rich and famous, but they're not. So part of the Kickstarter was, you get VIP tickets, meet and greet to meet her, and I thought that was kind of cool. But then I saw that she had a thing where she would write a custom song for you. She wrote a song that I used to propose to my girlfriend this past year. So now we're buds. But the whole idea is that I wanted to support a musician I believe in And I want other people to listen to her music. And the beautiful thing is you can listen to her music and it will not cost you anything. So go check out Alicia Witt. Listen to her music on as many places as you can. 15,000 Days was the name of the new album, which is absolutely amazing. And I really think you should check it out. So again, here I am trying to talk to writers and tell them some fun stuff. But I know people enjoy music, and I know she's a brilliant storyteller as well with some of the videos that she's put together. But again, that's the kind of thing you want from your readers. You want them to be so passionate about what you do and so moved by the things that they share that they want to feel part of your life, like I did. Hey, Alicia helped me propose to my girlfriend. Now we have this cool thing together. But you want them to be selling your work. They want to be sharing anecdotes. As a bookseller, I would share anecdotes. When I put a book in someone's hand, if the author had shared a story with me, I was able to relay that repeatedly to other people and said, well, did you know that, when Lawrence Hill wrote this book, he was at his grandmother's cottage and he was looking out over the lake, in that one scene where the character does this, that's how it came to him. And when you're doing that as a bookseller, when you're doing that as a reader, sharing other people's books, that creates a connection between the writer and the reader that your fans can do for you. Now, the last P is promotion. And the reason I'm trying to wrap this up so you guys can ask some questions. And promotion I didn't put as one of the 7 Ps because promotion is the thing that transcends all the things, right? We just talked about promotion in patronage and promotion in partnership and, well, maybe promotion in practice. But again, when you're sharing on social media that you are writing, am writing, hashtag, that kind of thing, it's kind of promotion because you're showing people that you're at work at your next book. And when I see an author I really, really love is at work, I'm just thinking, okay, come on, when's the next book coming, please? Because I can't wait to read it. That's promotion as well, even when it comes back to practice and patience and persistence. So I call it the silent P or the bonus P. Do you guys have any questions for me? Yeah.
You had mentioned an 8P, which was that?
Promotion, yeah. So, and again, I could have made it the 8 Ps, but I thought 7 sounded better and it looked better when designing it. So, yeah.
Can I buy that right now?
Sure. Yeah, the book, I only have a few on me. The book is $5. It's $2.99. It's not, it's very small. It's short. It's available online as well, as I do have a few copies. But thank you. Yeah, it's sold. Question in the back. The question is, in order to promote yourself these days, do you have to have your own blog? Yes, no. No, you don't. With promotion, there are ways that you are comfortable with doing. If you are comfortable and enjoy writing a blog, that is one way of getting content out there. Content marketing, in my mind, is an amazing way for people to discover you. If you have lots of books, they discover you through different mediums. If you only have one book or you're just getting started, maybe they discover you through a blog. Now, your blog can be your website, which I would prefer. I would rather put it on your hands, like your domain, like markleslie.ca. So even though I've had a Blogspot blog forever, my markleslie.ca has the blog connected to it, so you can read it from there. You can do it on Facebook. You can even mini blog on Twitter and Instagram in a way, because you can share stories, you can share images. The challenge with using Medium, which is great because it's there, it's free, you can use it, is what happens when that goes away. So it's really, really good if you still have access to that content. So if Blogger went down and stopped the thing, I would have years and years of content that's gone. Because, I actually have backups of it. But if you're not comfortable doing that, if you're not comfortable blogging, don't do it, because authenticity is really, really important. And people can tell if you're faking it, or people can tell if you actually enjoy what you're doing and sharing the things that you're doing. Does that answer the question? So, yeah, kind of. Yes, if you want to. Yes, it's important. Other question right there, yeah. Okay, so I'm just repeating the question. I have a .ca website because markleslie.com is a rich guy. Would you recommend the .com over the .ca or whatever? If I could, because you can, it's relatively inexpensive in most cases to buy a domain. I would buy the .com, the .ca, the .org, the .net, the .whatever, and merge them. I did that with KoboWritingLife.com because nobody had it. It was a new thing. Some other guy named Mark Leslie, damn him. But I did that, and then I would route it. So if you went to the wrong one, it would just route you back to the .com. So I would recommend that. If it's taken, there are creative ways you can get around it. I could have gone with mark-leslie.com maybe, but there are other ways you can get around it. I would recommend a domain that's relatively easy. And again, my last name is Lefebvre. Nobody should ever have to be forced to spell or pronounce that bloody name, which is why I went with that. So in my case, even though I do a lot of my nonfiction business of writing and publishing, because people know me as the guy who worked for Kobo and works at Drafted Digital, etc. So I use Lefebvre in that way, but still, I go back to, let's make it easy, markleslie.ca. Yeah.
What about if you have a name that's not that catchy? What about not using a pen name?
Yeah, so if you have a name that's not that catchy, using a pen name, and maybe the pen name works better for your genre too, as well. But again, it's what you're comfortable with, and yeah. Right. Yeah, you could, and again, you can use your own identity and a pen name. Nora Roberts is an example, a well-known author who writes under a different name as well, but everyone knows. But they know that this is this brand or this style that's different. Christine Catherine Rush has dozens of pseudonyms. Well, you had to back in those days because the publisher would only do one book by one publisher or author a year. Yeah, exactly. So that is part of branding too. Like her Christine Grayson novels are a different style than other. And a question in the back, yeah. Sure. You want my personal one or my Drafted Digital one? Because my personal one is mark@markleslie.ca. That's easy. Or mark.lefebvre@drafteddigital.com. So, as well, if you can't, my website has a form. You can always reach out to me that way, and I can get a hold of you. There's a question there.
Sort of building on that last question.
Yeah.
So I have trouble sticking to one genre, and you're saying like the second chair doesn't actually help you write your first book. But if they are very different, is it better to have the names, or should you have
So if you write different genres and like let's say a space opera, and then you've got like a historical romance and completely different audiences, should you write under two different pen names? Maybe yes and no. There may be crossover readers. You can always write under a pen name if you definitely don't want. So let's say you write children's fiction, but then you also write erotic horror. You probably don't, right? I mean, I sold a story to Rebecca Mesta in a YA anthology for Fiction River, and she was concerned because I actually had a few erotic pieces out there, and she was very concerned that this YA book. And we talked about whether or not I should sell it under a pseudonym, and I advised her to keep my name if possible, even though I don't want kids. There are, IDeath, no one under 21 or no one under 81 should read the book, but it's just nasty, horrible stuff. But yeah, so and if you do write under a pseudonym, let your readers know, hey, I've always wanted to write historical romance. I've got this great series out. I know you guys are following me because of my space opera, but I just want you to know, and I write it under this name. Be warned, it's not like my space opera. So long as you're clear and honest in your dealings. Or maybe you need to keep it. You're a kindergarten teacher and you don't want them to know that you write erotic horror. So that is when you want to use a pseudonym as well.
Just to throw in a comment on that, the other thing is if you're writing a series, get the domain name for the character. It doesn't have to be...
Oh, yeah, good. Yeah, I'm going to repeat that.
Or the name of the universe.
Yeah, you can always use for your domain, you can always use the name of the series. You can always use the name of something in your brand, the character from your book, if they're memorable. Rob Sawyer, for example, has sfwriter.com. It's not robertjsawyer.com, although I wonder did he buy that and does he reroute it? I don't know. But he's done content marketing on sfwriter.com for years. So yeah, Winston, great point. The domain can be a character you've written, It could be a series. It could be some other brand. It could be the name of your universe if you've written different things. Any other questions? Okay. Any comments? It's like, I was really expecting you to do this. What the hell? No, nothing like that. What time do I have to wrap up? I have 4 minutes. Okay, and there's a question over there or a comment. You're gonna throw something at me? Okay.
I thought the eighth one was going to be passion.
Oh my God, that is awesome. Eighth one, yes. The eighth one should be passion. See, they're really about 12. and I'm glad you brought that up. I think I share this in the book. When I was going back and forth with my editor and we were discussing the 7 and the 8 and the potential to market it as 7, and then I started rhyming all these other P's, and they went, okay, I get your point, Stum. Because maybe there's a sequel. The 7 other P's. Or maybe it can actually be a full book. Because I remember I was doing a conference and somebody yelled at the back, he goes, "That's not a book, that's a bloody pamphlet." I say, well, it's not bloody until I throw it at your head, sir. Just kidding. But if there's no other questions, there's one right here.
Should authors give reviews?
Should authors give reviews? My take on this, and again, just my personal opinion, I only write positive reviews. I only share reviews of books that I think are worth reading and sharing. I don't share negative reviews except privately. If I know the author and I want to talk, but I'm not going to publicly say anything negative. I may offer critique in the review saying, "Oh, I love this. Oh, it's too bad there wasn't more of this one character. Or I don't understand," or whatever. But for the most part, I believe in it. I don't leave reviews on Amazon because Amazon knows I know every author in the world and they will never publish any of my reviews no matter how much I love the book. Even though they ask me every time, "Hey, did you like this book?" Yeah, I did, but I'm not going to tell you. So, yeah, question there.
I want you to know that this is still her favorite seminar all day.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Thank you. Oh, thank you. That is the 3rd best thing I've heard all day. Oh. Thank you guys so much for taking the time. Have a wonderful day.